I, I was driving one day around Asokoro, and then I just saw one car, a car that they just released, and I saw a young guy driving it. I pulled over, and then I parked next to the guy. He was making the call, and then he's like, "Hey, sorry, is there a problem?" I'm like, "No, no, no, just finish your call, finish your call." And then he ends the call. I'm like, "Okay, how can I help you?" And I'm like, "Look, I just have one question for you, right? How do you do what you're doing that you're driving this car and you're this young?" He's like, "Whoa, is that why you stopped?" I'm like, "Yeah, I'm very interested." And I said, "Look, I'm not even asking you what you do for a living, because I know whatever you want to tell me, there are millions of people that do it. But I'm more interested in how do you do what you're doing. I mean, I know this car, they barely just released this car." And we laughed about it. And then he said he was a bit busy, and then he said, "Okay, so we would find time for us to sit, and then maybe I can share some ideas around what I do and how I go about it for you." And we exchanged contacts. And then um, we never had the opportunity to sit down and have that conversation. But what I did do is once in a while I would reach out and check up on him and say, "Hey, how are you doing? Your thoughts crossed my mind. I just wanted to reach out and check how you're doing." He never called me for like 2 years, but he would always return my call. He would always respond to my messages, not immediately, but at some point he would reach out. And one day he said, "Look, Mr. Anderson, look, I have you in mind. Just know that I have something in mind I want to do for you. Just be patient." And I said, "Look, I'm not reaching out to you because I want you to do anything for me, even though I'm not going to turn it down, because I mean, I'm young, everybody is looking for opportunities. But I want you to know that I'm just reaching out to you genuinely because your thought comes to my mind." He paused for a second on the phone. I know that got to him seriously, right? He paused for a second, and then I said, "Okay, no problem, no problem." I know that got to him. And then, after like 2 years of keeping this conversation alive, one day I was just driving, and I get a call from him in the midday. I'm shocked. I pick up the call, like, "Hey, how are you doing? Hey." And like, we exchanged pleasantries. And then he said, like, "Anderson, I'm going to send you someone's number. He's a military personnel. He'll do something for you. He'll do something for you." I'm like, "Okay, okay. Thank you very much. I appreciate this." And then, as he said, 30 minutes later, someone calls me. He doesn't introduce himself to me as a military personnel, but he did say, "Hey, XYZ person gave me your contact." I'm like, "Oh, okay. So, can you come to a certain place?" And this is like one of the security HQs, the headquarters of the security headquarters. So in my mind, I feel like, okay, this guy just wants to do like give me some small contract. Let me put body and soul together as usual. And then he said, "Look, when can you come?" I said, "No, I'm free now. I can come. I can be there in the next maybe 10 minutes or 20 minutes." And he said, "Okay, fine. I may not be able to take the call when you call, but do me a favor. I'll send you a code now. Once you get to the gate, show them this code." I'm like, "Okay, thank you, sir." And then I get to the gate of this HQ. I don't want to mention the security agency. And then there are so many people on queue trying to get in. There's a military personnel trying to check why you're here. Okay, you need to park at the visitors park. No, you need to go in. And then it gets to my point. I'm like, "Sorry, who are you looking for?" And I said, "Oh, I don't know the person, but he did give me a code to show to the people at the gate." And then I showed them a code. As soon as they entered the code, they're like, "Whoa!" They clear all the cars in front of me and tell me, "Just go straight to the headquarters of the building. There are personnel waiting there for you." I'm like, "Oh, okay." So in my head, I'm like, "Okay, this guy must be like some big shot here. I mean, for people to be giving me this level of, access." And then I get to the headquarters of the building. There are sets of personnel standing there. They receive me in, take me through all the receptions, through the lift, and then we get to a certain office. And I'm seeing what's written there. One of a chief of something. I don't want to mention it. One of the service chief. In my head, I said, "Okay, maybe they just have a meeting going on there, and he wants me to meet him there." And then we wait for like some few 3-4 minutes. I'm not really sure. Apparently, he's the only person that can open the door from inside, for me to come in. And then he opens the door, and they say, "Okay, you can go in now." And then there's just one person in the office, in that office, that has the signage. In my head, I'm like, "Oh, and I recognize his face immediately. And he calls me by the first name. "Hi, Anderson, how are you doing? Please sit down." So, first shock in my head is that this guy sent me a service chief number and did not even bother telling me that, "Look, the person calling you is a service chief of the Federal Republic of Nigeria." I mean, I would have gone home to refresh and put on my steez. I just felt maybe some military man that I'll just meet at home and have a simple conversation. Now, I don't want to talk about what transpired from there, that's separate. But all I'm trying to say is that if you have a business or you run a certain skill and you've been running this for like 2, 3 years, especially in a city like Abuja, and you've not been able to make progress so much in between these 2, 3 years window period, I may suggest that the major problem you're having is that you're having a networking problem. You need to be intentional about meeting people. And then when you meet people is one, you need to understand how to manage the relationships. Relationships are like plants. You need to nurture them for them to grow. You don't just run into people today and expect them to do something very, that intense for you. In some cases, yeah, there are always exceptions to the rule, but I'm talking of general rule. You need to be able to learn how to build this relationship. So, if you do business in a city like Abuja, basically, it is not like Lagos or other cities. Like Abuja is a city that is built more on who you know than what you know. In other cities, it is more about what you know. In Abuja, it is all about who you know, right? So it is more about the strength of your network that determines your net worth here. Am I preaching somebody? Yeah, that's a joke. It's more about the strength of your network that determines your net worth in the FCT. So if you live in Abuja, example, I always tell people you have to be intentional. You have to be intentional. You have to be strategic about where you go, who you meet, especially if you run a business. Now, if you do a 9 to 5, I can excuse you because you already stay in the structured system. But I'm talking about people like us that run our own business. It is more about people you know that determines how far you go. So you have to go to places that you get to meet the kind of people you want to meet, and then you also have to learn how to manage those relationships because you won't use the strategies that are used in the streets are different from the ones used in the palace, right? So I'm going to take some other days to talk about how to be strategic about meeting people, how meeting people, you can get the best out of relationships, because these are skills that you need to learn, basic survival skills to help you scale your business. What you can get in 10 years, relationship can get it for you in 10 minutes. That's the power of relationship. Everybody you see in enviable positions literally got there because someone recommended them, right? You always need someone to get you somewhere. Human beings are always the bridge between our two mountains of success. So you need to learn how to build this bridge perfectly in a way that you can take it from destination A to destination B. Yep. Thank you very much.